Good morning to you all. Beautiful fall temperatures out there today. Today's reading comes from John 13, verses 1 through 17. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "Then, Lord," Simon and Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "Those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet, for their whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him. And that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightfully so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." Here ends the reading.
Morning, everyone. I've been fighting a cough for 2 weeks, so if I break out into a coughing fit, just talk amongst yourselves, and then I'll recover in a minute. Will those who went on the trip stand? Our team members? Wow, we got just about everybody. That's awesome. What we just read, these guys practiced that 2 weeks ago in Honduras, of being a servant and serving those in Honduras and washing others' feet. So this is our crew that we'll talk about this morning. Thank you, guys. Before I get started, the word of the day, if you kids or grown-ups are counting, the word for today is coffee. It's going to be said a lot. First of all, we want to thank all of you guys, King of Prussia, for all the support and prayers and encouragement that you guys provide for us when we go on these things every year. We feel it. We feel it. And we couldn't do the trip without all of your support and help. This morning, we'll do it a little differently. I'm going to spend a few minutes. I'll describe the work that we did and where we went and the jobs that we did there. And then we're going to have Matt Wolf come up and share some of his thoughts on the trip and how the experience was for him. And then after Matt, Chris Bradley is going to come up and share some of his thoughts. And then finally, we're going to have Dave Hendricks come up and share some of his thoughts on the trip. And then I'll wrap it up in a neat little bow, and then we'll be done. So this first picture, I want to introduce someone to you. The folks here at KOP don't know Jessica. Well, a couple of us do. Andrew and I grew up with Jessica, the girl in this picture, and you won't see her in any other pictures. And it's because she traveled with us as a photographer this year. So this is the only picture that I have of Jessica, but it was a great blessing to have her travel with us on the trip. And all the gorgeous pictures that you'll see are because of Jessica. The other thing is I only have about 23 or 24 pictures or so. I already have 60 from her, and she says she has hundreds of pictures for us, and we'll have those posted out, and you can connect them through the church website once I get them all and can get them all loaded. So that's Jessica. All right, we started at 3:30 in the morning. We left our building here and left for a flight that was at 5:45 in the morning. So that was us leaving Philadelphia at 5:45, heading to Honduras. We landed in Tegucigalpa around 11 a.m., walked over to where our rental vehicles were, and then got ready for a nice long drive. We finally made it to the ranch, I think around 4 or 5 p.m. So that was a long, long travel day where we started at 3:30 in the morning. We ended up at the ranch at about 4 or 5, just in time for dinner, so that worked out well. This was the cabin that we all stayed in. On the left side, there were 8 guys. There's 2 showers in there. We never once had hot water or anything even close to it, and 1 bathroom. And on the right side is where we had 8 of our girls staying. They had the same thing. We tried tricking them to tell them we had hot water, but I don't think they did either. And a bathroom. But if you look behind that cabin, just a beautiful view. And there were little decks off of the back. But that was where we stayed at the ranch all week. Sunday morning, we worshiped at a congregation called Los Colorados. I didn't get a head count, but it was somewhere between 75 and 100 people there. I would guess. A beautiful congregation that we were able to worship with, and then get to meet and talk with some of the members, even if you only knew a couple words or things like that. It was nice to get to meet the church members. One little quick story. Just an interesting thing about how people do worship different. At this church, when they had the contribution, when they finished the contribution, they brought it up to the front and counted it right there, and then announced it to the congregation. And a couple of us were curious about why they might do something like that, and it's for transparency. There is an eldership there, or a lot of church leadership to oversee things. It's the preacher. He's the guy that's running things there. So they want to know. He can be held accountable for the amount that was collected that Sunday morning. So that was a neat thing for us to experience. And I don't have a picture of us eating at Cedena, but then we drove down to the beach, which is at the very bottom portion of Honduras where it meets at the Pacific Ocean. And if you looked out to your left, you could see Nicaragua, and if you looked out to your right, you could see El Salvador. A very neat place. That was where Jessica had her picture with the guys on the beach. Another picture from us from church on Sunday. It was the other neat thing. They had different small chairs all along the left side of the auditorium where all the little kids sat, and then all the adults sat on one side. So immediately, Mark Cristaldi sat right in the middle of all the kids, and Rachel made her way over there too. Sat in the little seats with the kids. All right, during our week there, every morning we would drive our trucks down from the main part of the ranch to a big warehouse. This is still on Mission Lazarus property. And we would load up the trucks with a whole lot of bricks and some sand, and that's also where we would load up our bags for food delivery for the day. Bless you. Every morning, We would start at 6:30. We'd have breakfast and then load up our trucks around 7, and then start making our way to the plantation, which I can't wait to show you. But this is how we'd start our day, loading up the trucks with our brick. This is something I really am struggling with the proper way to describe. Every morning after we loaded up all the trucks, we would drive over to the coffee plantation. That was our work site for the week. Well, if right here on my right side is the Mission Lazarus Ranch, there's a big valley, and then there's another mountain range over on the other side, and that's where the coffee plantation is. Well, there was one road that cut across the middle. I think we only took that one time. And then the other times we would drive down off of the Mission Lazarus Ranch, take a highway across, and then a road up. Well, these roads, the only way I've been able to describe it is a Jeep or like Dodge Ram type TV commercial that you've seen, where it's just rocks and rivers and streams on these really big inclines. That's what we did every day for about an hour. The plantation is located at 5,000 feet up in the mountains, so every day we would put them in 4 low and drive about 10 miles an hour up these mountains. And if you can see real closely, we had just gone through a stream in that picture. So that captures a little bit of it, but there's no way you could capture these trucks bouncing around. And I mean, I had a blast. I thought it was a lot of fun driving that way up these mountains. You really feel cool doing things like that. We blew out 2 tires doing that. One of them, Aaron, it happened while he was on a pretty steep incline, so he couldn't just stop there. He had to keep going till it leveled out a little, and he bent up the rim pretty good, but did a great job at controlling the truck on an incline like that. There wasn't guardrails there, or all these other safety things that you would have to keep you from rolling off the mountain. So we did have to be very careful. And if another car happened to be coming the other way, that was a whole issue. It would turn into like a half-hour ordeal of how you figure out how to get around each other. But I mean, ask any of the team members to try and describe it. Maybe they'll have a better way than I have. It was hard to explain. The only word that I kept coming up with was fun. This is what I call the promised land. This is the coffee plantation. The first day we got up there, I think I cried 3 times. It's just a beautiful place to actually see where all this stuff is grown and where it all happens. The little house you see over to the right is the manager or the main coffee farmer, Grigori, I think his name is. So he lives there and takes care of the farm. It's not a farm like you would normally think of, where you just see nice, neat rows of corn or things like we see here. It's literally just coffee plants grown on the side of the mountain. So you don't just walk in and see everything. All the coffee is shade grown, so there were mesquite trees and guava trees that they're grown under. So it just looks like a forest, and then when you look closer is where you actually see the coffee plants. And this view from here kind of shows all the work that they're doing to increase the production there at the plantation. 2 years ago, this farm produced 4,000 pounds of coffee. Last year, they harvested 7,000 pounds of coffee, and in about 5 years, he thinks they're going to produce 30,000 pounds of coffee. So this big open area here is what was going to be the drying patios, where they would dry all that they pick and produce. This little area is what they're using now. It's where they would, after the coffee's picked and put in baskets, they bring it over to this thing up this little ladder, and there's kind of, you can see like a hopper thing up top where all the coffee cherries go into. It gets depulped and then goes into a little retaining bin where it ferments for a day or two, and then after that, they spread it out on the drying patios. This will all be replaced too. There's going to be a much bigger depulper that they're going to purchase, and it'll be a lot more efficient. And this is another just shot of how they're redoing the drying patios. There's going to be brick rectangles, and then inside it'll be 2 inches of concrete that'll be poured. So our jobs for the week, that's kind of the layout of the farm. Our jobs for the week, we had a few different things. Mark and Victoria took care of one job in one day. There's a new area that they're going to plant new coffee. So they cut down a whole lot of brush and other small trees and things like that. And Mark and Victoria cleared that whole hill where they were going to be putting new coffee plants. So that was their job for the first day on Monday. The other job that we did while we were there is put a fence around the entire processing area and where they dry. Jared described the area up in the mountains as cowboy country. So when you have something valuable like coffee out drying on patios or being processed, some people will come try taking it. And if they do that, you get shot. I mean, it's cowboy country. That's how he described it. So one of the things that we do is he had a big 6-foot tall fence that went around. When we heard that before we went to Honduras, it sounded real easy. A chain link fence around a processing area. But it was on the side of a mountain, and they were great. They were big 6-foot tall oak posts that we were stretching the chain link fence to, and needed to pull it really, really tight and then staple or use these big staples that we were nailing in to each post. So it was a lot of hard work. And I'm thankful to say that at the end of our trip, the entire fence was done all the way around the whole plantation. Here's Aaron working hard. He proved himself to be one of the better guys that handled a hammer. So, and he looked like he had so much fun doing it, doesn't he? He just really enjoyed it. Aaron's such a good hard worker. Jordan, and we had a lot of help from the Hondurans. It sounds like we're taking credit now for getting this whole fence done and some of the other things, but honestly what would happen is we would get all we could done and then show up the next day, and magically there's a lot more fence there when we came back. But we did what we could. Thank you. It wasn't that bad. Thank you, Jenna. So that was one of the main jobs that we did that we worked on the entire week. The other thing was getting those drying patios ready. We were mixing some mortar to lay the brick that would kind of be the outline for all the spots where they were going to pour the concrete. We didn't have mixers up there, so, well, actually we did have mixers. It was Sophia and Danielle and whoever had a shovel and was ready to mix mortar there. And then they would level out the ground. We had to shovel and bring a lot of dirt in to kind of level out the land where the patios would be. Emily was instructing Dave and Joe how to do it. She's like, no, that needs to be better. And yeah, if you notice the tools that we're using, you know, if you go to Home Depot, you can get a real nice tamping machine that will get that done in about 5 minutes. And what they were using was a stump and 2 boards screwed to it, which worked really well, just maybe not as easy or efficient as going to Home Depot and getting a good one. But the guys get to show off their muscles when they do stuff like that, so we figured we'd let them do that. And there's Chris moving a lot of dirt to level out the drying patio. One of the other things we didn't actually plan on, but it came up while we were there. King of Prussia bought 14,000 coffee plants from a neighboring farm to be planted at the Mission Lazarus Ranch. So one of our tasks was to drive over to this farm and pick up all these new little coffee plants. This one could take a long time to explain too, but similar to that road driving up to this coffee farm, we got on another one and drove over to this coffee farm. And I think it was Aaron described it really well. When we were trying to get 3 trucks loaded up with these coffee plants, it was like a game of Tetris to figure out how are we going to get 3 cars in and then all turned around to come back. So after the last day, we finally got it figured out on the best way to do it, and part of it was backing up the truck into like the side of the big hill or mountain and then letting these other 2 turn around. And we only got about 4,500 or so of the 14,000 that we bought back to the Mission Lazarus Ranch. The team that was there the week after us, hopefully they got the rest. And they figured out the Tetris challenge on how to get their trucks in and out. So that was one of the other bonus things that we were able to get involved with. And when we dropped them off, we were able to see where they're going to plant all these new coffee plants. One of the biggest things we do every year is food delivery. It's something that can kind of get lost in the mix when we're just thinking about, I don't know, we're building this fence and we're putting down these patios and mixing concrete. But food delivery is something where I always feel like that's where the spiritual growth happens, and that's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, where we get to meet families and speak with them one-on-one. This year, they did it a little differently. We normally would buy 12 bags, but they were too big. They would be 40, 45 pounds, so this year they broke them up into 2. So we had 24 bags of food to deliver every day to the surrounding area all around that coffee plantation. And just like in years past, we would show up at someone's home. This was one of the homes that we came to, and bring this bag of food and then ask the family how we could pray for them. And some of us would sing. My group didn't sing because I am not a singer, but we were happy to pray and talk with the family. This was at one of the food deliveries, praying with one of the families. And for me, these are the real great moments. One of our other treats this year was we got to visit with the school. It was called the Los Portillos School. It was real close to where the plantation is, and on Wednesday morning or so, we were able to visit with them. We had 3 different little station things that we did. This was where they were singing some songs. We had one where we did our craft station. I put crafts in quotes because what we did was just make paper airplanes. And but man, I'll tell you, they loved it. You give a bunch of kids paper airplanes and then run outside and throw them, and we had a blast. And the other was, of course, games where we got to play some soccer out back. And I didn't get to see a whole lot of that because I can't hang with these guys. But man, those kids can really play soccer. They know how to play. And before we left, we had something. We had like a gift that this is your guys' slide. Laura and Catherine Coyle had made some friendship bracelets, and we brought them with us. So before we left the school, we presented all the kids with a bracelet and just asked them to, every time that they would look at that, just remember that God loves them and that they have a friend in Christ. So that was what we left with them, and these are a couple of the girls showing off a couple of your bracelets. So thank you guys for making them, and they were delivered well. So the other thing we would do every night or following dinner is have a devotional, and It was nice this year to have a different guy. Every night we had someone different lead our devotional thoughts, and this is, where we could reflect on the day, pray about some things, and so these were some good moments for us. Prayer Rock think of Lion King, the rock looking out over the valley. That's where we had our devos a couple times. Although, honestly, it was, when you're really tired after the day, climbing up to Prayer Rock for a devo was tough. So we didn't always go there, but it was a good spot to sit and pray. Jared describes it as being closer to God. And it does feel like that. It does feel like that when you're up there. One of the last things I want to leave you with before I turn it over to Matt real quick is, we think about why work on a coffee farm? How is that impacting Honduras? I mean, just immediately, there's going to be a lot more workers having jobs to do there at the farm. But this is the real reason. It's not a great picture, but this is a picture of the Children's Refuge. This is where the children's home that Mission Lazarus runs. And this really is the hub of what Mission Lazarus does. It all starts with the children's home. That's what they're here to do, is take care of kids and bring them in. And all the sales from the coffee farm helps run these homes, helps give these kids a place to live. And the story that I wanted to leave you with is Wednesday, before we went to the school, Jared gave us a quick tour of the refuge and his vocational school, the woodworking school. And we were able to just pepper him with questions. And I think it was Jessica asked him a question. You have this children's home. What's the exit strategy? What happens, when the kids are older? And, how do you transition them to moving out of the home and being independent? And Jared said, you know what, we don't have an exit strategy. When you live with your parents or you grow up in your home, it's your home. Your parents don't have an exit strategy for you. Maybe a couple of you do, but, they view this children's home as their home. And as long as they need to live there, that's how long they're going to live there. And that's something that just really struck me as this is bigger than just taking care of some kids that really need some help when they're little. This is taking care of a person the whole time. And as long as they need to stay there, this is their home. And that kind of put it together, at least for me, on why we're working so hard on a coffee farm. We don't see the impact right away, but this is what it's helping them accomplish, this children's home. Here's one of our final shots of us after we finished all our work on the last day. This is our group saying goodbye to the promised land. And I can turn it over to Matt. He'll share some stories. Thank you so much for your time. Careful about the wet spot.
You'll notice there's a small person in that picture who actually was not part of our mission team. Anyway, so Jason, thank you. He mentioned that he did not have any pictures of where we ate at Cedeno. I actually did get a couple on my cell phone, and I had the privilege of sitting next to Sophia, who I will refer to as Sophia the Barbarian. And what happens is they cook this fresh fish, and I mean it's like 5 seconds later fresh, and hard to explain, but it's all there and it's in its glory, and I mean you're just taking the meat out, and I have a picture of I think you tore the head off of the fish and was just staring at it, poking its eyeballs out. And I mean, if that's not what a mission trip is about, then I don't know. But one thing you notice about when you plan for a trip like this, at least the week or so beforehand, you worry about things like, what do I need to pack? How much money do I need? What if I get sick? Do I have enough film for camera? And then, you realize when you get there, it's not about you. Nothing that happens there is about me. It's all about everybody that you're with, and it's about God. And I think that's the attitude we all need to take. Sure, we all play a part in this, but it's not about us. You realize just how small you are when you get to a country which is considered a third world country, and it's so, even for a third world country, it's pretty big. When you drive from the airport to 4 hours plus to a ranch, I mean, it's only the size of, I think, Virginia and Tennessee, but it's still, you are so small, just as a person, compared to everything that you see there. And it's truly amazing. And then you realize, I'm in a third world country. How is a third world country so beautiful? And you just, you get out there and you're making the ride, and you see all these outstanding mountains that God has shaped. And then you kind of segue that into, well, how can God shape me? And that's part of the reason you go on these trips. And Jason mentioned we delivered food and to the church, the people from the Los Colorados. And these are not people who all lived in a concentrated area. They were miles away. And what I was thinking was, we're all dispersed in this congregation, and we have to drive to church. But we get to drive to church. These people don't get to drive to church. They can't hop in their Ford Explorers and, go to church whenever they want. They walk to church, and a lot of times it's these steep mountains, and it can't be easy. We sat there, we complain about driving on these mountains, and I'll complain about the ride to church sometimes in the morning. 20 minutes, it's killing me. But, these people are walking, and what that tells me is they are unbelievably committed to God. They adore God. They don't have as much stuff as we do, yet they make it a priority to get to church. They don't worry about circumstances beyond their control. They know that their priority on that Sunday morning is to go and worship God. Now, if we all had that attitude, myself included, here, I feel that it would be a better place. And it was just incredibly touching to see these people have that attitude there. They have so little, yet, keeping in perspective, we all have the same God, the same exact God who loves each and every one of us, and they adore him. And there was one of the jefes, if you will, a man called Santos. He worked on our, right there, on the farm, or on the coffee plantation, and he just exemplified the attitude of the Honduran workers. He too, he didn't have a car. He had to hitch a ride back with us on the last day we were there. So people like him would walk to work. They would walk, however long it took, 45 minutes, an hour, and then work outside for 8-9 hours, not think twice about it. And just the incredible encouragement that they gave us, knowing full well as I'm sitting there trying to put bricks together and mix cement, outwardly, he is encouraging us. But I know that inside they're thinking, man, if these Americans just left, we can get this done in like 2 hours. But that's not the point. And they know that we're there to edify ourselves as well. But it's the attitudes, the encouragement, they'll just play soccer during their lunch break, and it's like, okay, back to work. And it's a completely different world when you're there. But in so many ways, it's incredibly, and I'll say edifying again, because it truly makes you a better person just by being around these people for 7-8 days. So let me just give you a few Bible verses that could probably sum up this trip. The first night we were there, or the second night, there was another group from Tennessee at the ranch, and they had asked us to come sing with them. And their voices made us sound a lot better, but it was still great getting to know them. And they did a devotional with us. And the man that was talking quoted Philippians 2:14-15, said, "Do everything without complaining or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a crooked and depraved generation in which you shine like stars." So that tells me, basically, go get them. And this is the night before we had to go out and do this work. And that stuck with me all week. Don't complain, Matt. Don't complain. Don't argue. Do what you're told to do. And I honestly think all 16 of us who went on this followed that advice. I did not hear a whole lot of complaining. And, on a mission trip, it can get ugly. It can get political a little bit. And this was just We all just did our job and realized that we were there for something a lot greater than us and a lot greater than building a coffee plantation. It's, we're there to honor God. And then 2 Corinthians 12:9, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Midway through the week, you get tired. The adrenaline wears off. Your stomach starts to go south. Your chest starts to go south. You're coughing. You're not feeling great physically. But you have to realize you're being made at least I feel that I'm being made a better person if I can rely on God to get through those weak moments where I feel like my hand's about to fall off from hammering, or a little dehydrated, or you're getting sunburnt. That's okay. God's doing this this is intentional, and we each become better people by dealing with that, especially relying on Him. And finally, with a group of 16 people, it only takes one bad apple to ruin it. But I don't think we had any. And in fact, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15:33, it said, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. I loved our company. I thought we were great. And I'm sure Jason would back me on that. There was just such a sense of camaraderie and bonding in ways that you probably can't imagine unless you're there. So with that, I want to encourage anyone who's even remotely thinking about going on a mission trip. I can't sit here and tell you to go. It's not the easiest thing. I understand there are circumstances that allow us to go, but also prevent us from going. But seriously, if you've got just a little hankering in your head, if you've got that instinct, if you hear a voice that you maybe want to go on a trip, you should follow it, because that's God. He's masquerading as your instinct, I believe. Think long and hard about this. This trip, it's so cliche to say going away on a mission trip will change your life, but I think in many ways it does. And if nothing else, it gives you a greater appreciation of what we have here. And it allows you to expand your comfort zone. And the more as a Christian, you're called on to be a missionary, whether you're here or there. And you expand that comfort zone, you become that voice that's more and more powerful to God and to everybody else. So that's all I have. I will turn it over to David. Chris Bradley, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, everyone. I know many of y'all think I'm a visitor that just comes up here and is going to tell a story, which Matt and Sophia thought I was visitors the first time they went on the mission trip with me. And it was fun. We had lots of fun with it, and now we're all good friends from it. But what the mission trips mean to me is that what I've learned from this past mission trip, especially, is that how the Mission Lazarus does do a lot for the people in Honduras. And what I found out this past time is that kids walk from all around these mountains, and they walk 2 hours and 3 hours just to get to a vocational school every day. And they stay at this vocational school every day for 3 or 4 hours. Then they walk another 2 hours home without even having anything to eat the whole day. They stay there all day. Well, they walk 2 hours to get to this vocational school, and they stay there all day, and they don't even eat one time. And they walk home another 2 hours, and they don't eat. So it's 60 kids at this vocational school that register every year. And these parents and these teachers, the teacher came to, the teacher came to Jared and said, why do you have all these kids here and they're not eating? We need to have some food for these kids. And Jared said, if somebody cooks the food, that they would have food for the kids to eat. So all of the parents, 10 parents volunteered to do all this cooking and all this everything, and we got to see everything happening in that week. Within that week, we found out that the kids weren't eating and that they provided food for them, and the parents, within the next day, were walking with their kids to come and cook food for all the kids at the school. And that was one of the most humbling and blessing experiences I've ever seen in my life, how people just, they said, no, this is a great thing for our kids to learn. This is a great thing that our kids don't have the opportunities that other kids in the city of Tegucigalpa and everybody else has, that we're going to give our kids some, if the opportunity is there, we're going to give our kids the opportunity to have the same thing. And that was one of the most humbling experiences that I ever experienced. And I experienced, like, this lady, this was the year before, this lady has a daughter, and the daughter has special needs. And this lady was 75 years old, taking care of her 25-year-old daughter. And the only way she could take care of her daughter is by washing clothes in the morning. So she goes every morning and washes clothes, or tries to wash clothes for her neighbors in the town. She goes down to the stream and washes clothes for them. And the morning that we went to deliver food, she wasn't there at the time. And when we got there, he said, wait for a little bit, because she's going to be back. And when she got back, she was like so happy to see us. She came, she embraced us, she hugged us, she was giving us all kisses. And then she told us that she had worked she tried to find work all morning and she couldn't find work. And so she said she had prayed to God, and God had answered her prayer to bring us to her house to give them food for the day or for the month. And she was so blessed and humbled to have the experience that she had with us. And another thing, well, I'm finna get down, but the one thing we had in our cars, like going back to the Ponderosa, what is it called? Posada. I was gonna call it Ponderosa from Bonanza, but one thing we had like this thing where we had made up this like boy band. And it's called Wrong Direction. And in this boy band, Run Turn. And in this boy band, we made up a song called, what was the song called? Deceptively Jack. And that was one of Dave Hendricks' creations. So I'll turn it over to Dave Hendricks.
I want to start by saying I had no idea I was going to go on this trip until maybe like 3 months before we left or so. And I didn't even know if I wanted to be on it until probably the second day we were there. The morning we were going, I was thinking, like, before I woke up to leave, I was like, I could just stay home right now and just see if we can get the money back and just go. But so I ended up manning up and going. And then as soon as I got there, just everything started to kind of like turn up how I was hoping it would. Like, most people at this church thought I was like a really quiet person, which if you ask like anyone in my family, that's not true at all. So like, I thought it was awesome that it gave me a chance to kind of like meet everyone around the church that was there and kind of get to show who I really was, I guess, and find out more about them too, because I think it was awesome to kind of become friends with everyone in the whole group and whatnot. And I think it brought me a lot closer to God, because just seeing like all these people that have so much less than us in every way, like food, health, money, just having like, just being able to wake up and be happy every day, when most of us are like sad if we lose internet connection on our phone or something, I don't know. But yeah, so that was kind of an eye-opening experience. And I'd say probably like they were talking about on one of the earlier pictures, Pride or Prayer Rock, kind of interchangeable names for it, where we had a Devo. I think that being up on top of a mountain and having like a lesson about God just had kind of a nice combination to it, because the whole time, like, I can't remember, I think Mark Cristaldo might have been doing the Devo that night, but he said, like, I don't expect any of you to look at me, just look wherever you want. And so I just turned and faced the open valley with the mountains surrounding it. And just like the way everything came together, it just felt like God was almost like there with us at the time. And so that was amazing. And after that Devo, I just stayed up there, and I think Victoria sat up there, and we both just kind of took it all in for a while. And I think that was life-changing in a way, because obviously being in high school, there's a lot of bad going on, and being able to just kind of like gather myself, and I feel like that was kind of like literally like going to the peak of like faith, I guess, coming back to like where I should be. And I think something else that I really liked when I was on the trip was like food deliveries, like Chris and everyone else was talking about, because that's when I really saw like all these people, like just about every family that my group visited, which was it was me, Mark, our photographer Jess, and Jordan, and just about every family had at least 1 or 2 sick people in it. And you just think about like, how do those people feel better in any way? Like they don't have medicine or like easily accessible like doctors or like healthcare people to just help them. So you just kind of have to like rely on God for all that. And that was kind of eye-opening. But I'd say overall, like just every aspect of the trip was just incredible, because it was with a group of people who all have the same beliefs as you, which is a new change of pace from the everyday high school and whatnot. And especially with Joe, whose birthday is actually like 1 day ahead of mine, having someone my age that's also a guy to kind of relate to, I guess. And I'd say if you're ever thinking about going on a mission trip, you should definitely do it, because if you're hesitant at all, like, I didn't know I wanted to be there when we woke up to go the first day of work. So, but that obviously changed, and I had a great time. So I guess I'll turn it back to Jason, wherever he's sitting at.
All right, I'm not going to talk a bunch more. I don't think I could add to what you guys just said. Thank you so much. I mean, I think the way to sum it up is God is doing great things. He's doing great things in southern Honduras, and he's using Mission Lazarus to accomplish a lot of that. And he's also doing great things here and changing the people that go on these trips. The last little thing I'll throw out there, we're planning next year, and we're kicking it off now. So I'm not going to wait till January or February to do a whole promotion thing. I don't have the exact dates yet, but it's usually close to when we did this trip, which is the 3rd week in July. So if you have some kind of interest in going, come talk to me, and then when we get the date set, we'll let you know. When we have the price set, we'll let you know. But and we'll put that all out through the bulletin and things like that. But you can sign up now if you want to go. And we don't normally do an invitation, but I think we've seen God move in all kinds of ways on this trip. And if you haven't experienced that, or haven't accepted Christ to be your Savior or to follow him, I'd invite you to do it, and don't wait. I would do it right now. Let God come in and take charge, and I think you'll see amazing things happen in your life. This was just one little example of a week in Honduras, but that can happen all the time. It doesn't have to happen in a different country. That can happen in Phoenixville. It can happen in King of Prussia. It can happen right down the road. God does amazing things everywhere. You just need to allow him to do it. So if you want to do something like that, I think we have the means, and here's an opportunity for you. We could do that when we stand and sing. Thank you, Mark.